U.S. President Joe Biden is to deliver a firm rebuke of Russia's war against Ukraine in his speech Wednesday at any moment to the UN General Assembly, a U.S. official said after President Vladimir Putin made a veiled threat of using nuclear weapons. Biden is set to make his second address to the UN General Assembly shortly. AP Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani has more.
White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says the president goes to New York in good shape,
with the wind at his back,
touting U.S. alliances, unity in backing Ukraine amid Russia's war, and historic investments at home. But UN Chief Antonio Guterres sees a world in trouble.
We cannot go on like this.
Citing conflicts, climate change, economic woes.
And yet we are gridlocked in colossal global dysfunction.
Last year, President Biden focused on a post-Trump return to American leadership and global partnership. One analyst says this year demands more. The president's expected to heavily focus his address on the war in Ukraine. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered a partial mobilization of reservists in Russia, risking a deeply unpopular step that follows a string of humiliating setbacks for his troops nearly 7 months after invading Ukraine. The partial mobilization order came a day after Russian-controlled regions in eastern and southern Ukraine announced plans to hold votes on becoming integral parts of Russia, a move that could set the stage for Moscow to escalate the war following Ukrainian successes. The votes will be held in the Luhansk, Kherson, and partly Russian-controlled Zaporizhia and Donetsk regions. Americans could get hit with another substantial rate increase when the Federal Reserve wraps up its two-day meeting Wednesday, AP correspondent Donna Warder reports.
The central bank is expected to raise its key short-term rate by 0.75 of a point for the third consecutive time. That would boost the benchmark rate to a range of 3% to 3.25%, the highest level in 14 years. The benchmark rate affects many consumer and business loans. Last month, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said that efforts to curb inflation would bring some pain to Americans. And what Powell says in a news conference after the meeting could indicate whether the Fed expects to continue tightening credit significantly until it's convinced that inflation is on its way down. Donna Warder, Washington.
Meanwhile, Britain on Wednesday launched a 6-month plan starting in October to pay about half of energy bills for businesses as Prime Minister Liz Truss seeks to stop companies going under as a result of rocketing prices. The news precedes a mini-budget Friday when the finance minister is expected to unveil tax cuts to help a nation struggling with decades-high inflation. The announcement comes after Truss launched plans for a 2-year household energy price freeze, which also starts next month. Humanitarian security and political developments, including the formation of district councils, were among the issues covered in discussions Wednesday by top UN officials in Somalia on their visit to Jubaland. A high-level delegation headed by the UN Secretary-General's Special Representative for Somalia met with President Ahmed Mohamed Islam Madobe, members of his administration, and representatives of the local civil society. According to the latest report of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, about 7.8 million Somalis have been affected by the drought. Back to the war in Ukraine, Pope Francis has spoken out about the cruelty suffered by Ukrainian people. AP correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports.
In a closing speech to a general audience in St. Peter's Square, Pope Francis said his envoy to Ukraine, Cardinal Konrad Krajewski, had told him about the pain of the people, the cruelties and the monstrosities and the tortured corpses. The Vatican News Service says the envoy and his colleagues came under fire as they were distributing humanitarian supplies near the city of Zaporizhia in Ukraine last Sunday. No injuries were reported. The Pope has made repeated appeals to stop the war in Ukraine over the past months. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
And recapping our top story, U.S. President Joe Biden will deliver a firm rebuke of Russia's war against Ukraine in his speech to the UN General Assembly.
Hi, thank you for watching. I hope the videos are useful for you. Please subscribe to my channel using the button below.